This is a Pele Media podcast.
Welcome back to Goonies Minute, everybody. Goonies Minute is the fan podcast where we carefully explore the movie Goonies minute by minute. I'm Brady.
And this is Chris.
And we are here to bring you minute number 52. Today, Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm feeling kind of sick.
Yeah, I hear that you have a nice little concoction that you put together before I came over here.
I've been in this, smoothie kick lately, making my own smoothies and stuff. And then, tonight I was like, the only things I have to put in here are, bananas and what else? Let's see what I have in the pantry. And I had peanut butter, and I was like, peanut butter and banana.
That goes well. Honey goes with that. Sugar goes with that.
Not salt.
Why would you think that?
I don't know. For some reason, I was like, let me put a little dab of salt in there, which ended up being
Did you put no sugar in it?
No.
That's unbelievable.
I know. And so I, poured the thing and was like, I have to finish it now. Put all this effort into it and wasted all this. Yeah, I have to finish it. So I kind of want to throw up all over this mic right now. Speaking of using blenders.
Yeah, blenders, that kind of leads
That's a pretty good segue, huh?
To this little scene.
Let's get into the minute. In the previous minute, the Goonies broke through a wall underground and found themselves in yet another cave. As the minute ended, Ma Fratelli was firing up a blender, ready to get a point across to Chunk. At 52 minutes, Ma Fratelli begins to drop tomatoes into the blender while Francis and Jake hold Chunk down. Ma Fratelli turns off the blender and demands that Chunk tell her where the others have gone. Chunk cries as he tries to explain that they went under the fireplace. They demand that Chunk tell them everything. And so he does, from the start. Chunk begins to list off every bad thing he's ever done in his life. Jake, Francis, and Ma give each other inquisitive looks as Chunk cries his way through his life's confession. We cut back to the Goonies, climbing through a tunnel and into another cave. As the minute ends, Mouth discovers a lantern and observes that someone must have been there before them. And thus ends minute 52 of the Goonies. So, the other day I made a point about how Ma Fratelli is one of the most ruthless villains I've ever seen in a movie. And I made the point that she's not very much like a Bond villain in the sense that a lot of James Bond villains, they've got him tied down to a table and there's a laser about to cut him in half, and the villain's going to come out and just explain his entire plan or his entire plot, and they just kind of explain their whole master plan to him. And that is exactly what's going on in this minute. She's got, she's showing Chunk what she's going to do to his hand if he doesn't talk.
Well, I tell you what, that tomato just adds to the fear that Chunk must have at this time.
Yeah.
It adds to the people that are watching this.
Yeah.
The horror that must be. You can see the horror that this person is going through. And it has to be a tomato because it's red and nasty.
Yeah, because it's red. Yeah.
Kind of the blood correlation there.
Exactly.
But she says, and then the pudgy little fingers and the plump little hand and the fleshy arm.
Yep.
It's just ruthless. And again, I've said this before. When you said this is one of the most ruthless villains, when we first had that preview kind of episode, I didn't really see that. And as we're breaking this down, it makes you realize I don't watch movies as carefully as I need to because this is a very ruthless villain.
Yeah.
And she is terrifying. She's a terrifying person, and she's not afraid to go through with anything to get to whatever she needs to get.
Yeah, and it's not James Bond, like I'm saying. It's a child. It's a sweet little fat child. So we get another one.
And the lighting is it's that dimly lit, dark in the restaurant. It's like something would be in an old mob movie or something. That dimly lit room in a warehouse.
It's funny because if you look at what she's wearing, what Jake is wearing, what Francis is wearing, which is all dark, almost black and white colors, and they're in a building that is nothing but gray and black all the way around, and then suddenly you have just the most loud, obnoxious colored clothes you could possibly imagine. It's a red jacket over a Hawaiian print shirt on this, pudgy little kid who's just such a splash of color over all of this, and it adds to this real. It really does make him stand out in the mix with all this villainous.
No question, and I think it's funny. Sima says, "Where are your friends?" And again, Chunk is being so blatantly honest, and he gets even more honest a little bit later in just a bit. And it was this person that we were introduced to as someone that is always telling tall tales. We even heard about some of his tall tales earlier on in the movie. But he is so blatantly honest. He says that they're in the fireplace, and she's like, don't lie to me. Because, think about it. If you were the villain, if you were the person trying to get this information, and the friend said, and Chunk said, they're in the fireplace, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe that, would you? And then he starts saying how they go to Mikey's and there's treasure there and all kind of stuff. So, and then Francis makes a mistake of saying, tell us everything.
Yeah.
And so Chunk really takes it literally,
yeah.
which I can see Chunk taking something literally. And he starts talking about all the, all
yeah,
the
everything
things
he's
that
done
he did
wrong
in
in
each
his life.
grade.
Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed, and something with the lighting on Ma Fratelli's hand and arm, it's just disgusting and decrepit looking
gross.
and gray looking and nasty looking. It's her.
Yeah.
She's disgusting, gray, nasty,
flabby.
It's just death.
Yeah.
It represents evil and death.
Her arm, her flabby arm.
Man, it's just she's what a disgusting individual.
Yeah.
So, all right, we have this horrible stuff going on with poor Chunk, who's just absolutely terrified and crying. And he does a good job acting there, I think, too. And then you switch back to the Goonies in the cave.
Yeah.
And wow, once again, Steph is complaining as soon as we get back.
Yep.
And the minute ends with Data saying, "There's a lantern."
Go ahead. Are you done?
That's
Okay. This it's an interesting turning point here because so the Goonies have gone from being in the restaurant, and then they went underground where all the piping was. And I don't really consider that one of the caves necessarily. It's whenever, because that's like, a place that people have been, plumbers have been to install piping and stuff like that.
Right.
So it wasn't anything that mythical. And the water pressure from the pipes bust through the wall, and now they're in the caves. Now they're in One-Eyed Willie's caves. That they speak of him. Earlier in the movie, they talked about how he and his men dug all of these caves underground. And as we're going to see in the next minute, we really are there, and there's proof whenever we see.
But what's kind of interesting, okay.
What's that?
So, supposedly they built this restaurant over and put the fireplace over the entrance to what we're calling the caves.
Right.
Okay. But when we go down there, the first thing we start seeing is the pipes.
Correct.
And so we're saying that's not the caves. You're saying that's not the case.
Okay.
And the only way we supposedly got in the caves is by bursting a pipe. So was there another entrance?
Okay.
You see where the confusion
I do. And let me rephrase that. Not necessarily that wasn't the cave, but like there were people there, plumbers and stuff there before.
I agree with you totally.
Yeah.
But I wonder, it's like I'd love to know if Chester Copperpot went that way or he had to go another way because, with the water knocking that down. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's got to be other ways.
That's one of those things that, maybe not every detail is.
Okay, so underneath, let's think about this then. Underneath the fireplace might not have ever been an entrance or, exit for that matter that one of One-Eyed Willie's guys dug.
It's
so
possible.
there's got to be another entrance somewhere.
It's possible that is possible that's the case. Or, but wait, hold on a second.
Okay.
Here's another thing, though. Whenever One-Eyed Willie's guys did this, there was no country club with pipes.
True.
So
True.
All of these things, and it was in 1932 that Chester Copperpot was there. So who's to say that these things weren't added to block those caves whenever they put in the pipes? So actually thinking about it that way, that would explain a lot because there were so many 100 years in between what's going in there on now. So a lot of that stuff could have been altered since 1932. So if you look at it that way, it's like, okay, then that could explain
That's true, yeah.
That's all I have for this minute.
Yeah, same here. Okay, great. Everybody, be sure to tune back in tomorrow for minute number, what is that going to be? Minute number 53. And until then, this is Brady.
And this is Chris.
And we're here to remind you that Goonies never say die. Goonies Minute is a fan-supported podcast. If you like the show, then leave us a review on iTunes. You can find us at GooniesMinute.com, Facebook.com/GooniesMinute, Twitter.com/GooniesMinute, and at Instagram @GooniesMinute. You can contact us at GooniesMinute@gmail.com. You've been listening to a Pele Media podcast. For premium content and exclusive podcasts, visit us at patreon.com/Pele Media. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/Pele Media, and follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/Pele Media.